Would you like to have the ultimate freedom to come and go from the United States? As we say in Spanish, como Pedro por su casa, as Peter through in his own house. What does that mean? Have the right to come and go, to stay out as long as you wish, to sponsor family members, to vote, to have a say in society. Well, what you're talking about is not permanent residency. It's beyond permanent residency. It's citizenship. And today we're going to give you a few tips on citizenship and what it means to be a citizen, how it can impact your life, and how it can make your life much better. Also, I'm going to add in a little extra bonus. I want those of you who have a significant amount of money to know that there are certain precautions that you will have to take, even if you become a permanent resident, but even equally so or more so if you become a U.S. citizen, and that is the worldwide taxation rules. So let's get started. Hi there, James Martin here. I'm an immigration attorney based in Florida, but I have a nationwide practice, and I can help you anywhere in the 50 states. There are basically two ways to become a citizen based upon the manner in which you obtained your green card. Let's talk about the first and most common way to become a citizen, and that is you have been a permanent resident for 5 years. Now, the rule seems a little bit confusing because you have to be a permanent resident for 5 years, but in actuality, you can apply for citizenship 3 months before attaining your 5-year anniversary as a permanent resident. Now, I'm speaking to normal cases because there are exceptions for Cubans that I will not go into here in this setting. But what happens during those 5 years? Let's just take a couple of scenarios. Let's say you become a permanent resident in December of 2020, and you have been here during that time. You've not committed a crime. You've paid your taxes. You've filed your tax returns, and you have paid your child support if that is your case. 3 months prior to December 2025, you can apply for U.S. citizenship, but it's not just 3 months. You have to count 90 days. So, in fact, you're applying at the 4-year and 9-month mark for citizenship. And that gets you in just a little bit faster. But then again, let's go back to what citizenship means for people. I often call citizenship the real permanent residency. Why do I say that? Well, when you get your card, you get something called a permanent resident card, resident alien card. But it's not permanent. You can lose and forfeit your card, commit a crime, get deported, or stay out of the country too long. You can lose your card. But U.S. citizenship is different because U.S. citizenship in 99.9% of the cases means that you may remain in the United States permanently for the rest of your life. And that is a big bonus because if you do not have citizenship, you can always lose your permanent residency. And permanent residency means a lot. As alluded to before, it means that you can remain permanently in the United States, or if you love your home country and it's cheaper to retire there, you can move to your home country and stay in your home country as a U.S. citizen and always have the right to return to the United States, even if you stay out of the United States for a prolonged period of time. Residents have the additional problem, or the problem, of proving to the U.S. government that they have maintained their permanent residency when they return to the United States. Not so with citizens. And you can stay out of the country, retire, stay out 5 years, and come back to the United States. As I stated before, you can vote, you can participate in society, and you can live securely with your status. So now you've come to being a resident for 4 years and 9 months. And what are some of the requirements? Well, the big requirements are English language proficiency. And it's important to understand that English language proficiency is not just answering the civics and the English language questions, but the examiners take a deep dive into your ability to speak English because they review the application with you and they ask you questions on the application. So some people in the past have tried to short circuit the English language requirement by memorizing all of the questions that could possibly be asked about U.S. history and culture, and then they do not focus on the fundamental, like what is your name, where were you born, how many children do you have you ever committed a crime, have you ever claimed to be a U.S. citizen. These are all more complex questions grammatically and in vocabulary. So it's very important to understand that the English language proficiency part is not just being able to answer 6 out of 10 questions correctly. It also means that you have to be able to understand basic questions and be able to converse on a fundamental level. It does not mean that you have to be perfect in English, but the examiner has to understand or believe that you are at least proficient enough to answer basic questions that are asked of you. Another issue that comes up is continuous residency. So let's say you became a resident in December of 2020, and you decided that you needed to go back to your home country for prolonged trips, and you have not spent half or 51% of the last 5 years in the United States. And that is something that can be easily done, although not highly recommended, is people who travel back and forth frequently and they do not trigger the heightened scrutiny at the port of entry when coming into the United States, because the immigration officers who are at the border are usually looking for absences of more than 180 days. So it's possible to go out of the country for 2 months, come back, and you have not triggered any additional questions. But the issue becomes if you keep doing that for 2 months, 3 months, and you come back before the 180 days are up, you still could be spending a great deal of your time outside of the United States. And if you do not reach that golden 51% of the time in the United States, then you will not be eligible for citizenship. So let's just dive into that a little bit. What I mean by 51% of the time is you must be physically present in the United States for 51% of the statutory 5-year residency and physical presence requirement. So you have to really, in essence, count days. And if the number of days that you are outside of the country are greater than the number of days that you are in the country, then that means that you will not qualify for citizenship. And they can find it because they are constantly monitoring what is going on when you enter the country. You scan your passport, or your passport is scanned by the airlines before you leave the country, and your entries and exits are available to the immigration authorities. So that is very important. What are some other things that you need to be looking out for? Well, if you happen to get divorced and you owe child support, you need to be current on your child support. A big tripping up point for people in citizenship proceedings or a citizenship interview is the issue of taxes. Taxes seem to be something that I am seeing happening on a recurrent basis. If you owe back taxes, that is not an automatic disqualifier for citizenship. But you better beware that you need to have in place a payment plan with the IRS. And it is never, ever a good idea to establish your payment plan a short time before you file your application. You should be establishing a payment plan when you are unable to pay your taxes at the end of the year, and not wait until you're about to apply for citizenship. The other thing is you better have record of your honoring the payment plan. And so if you have to pay $150 a month, you should be able to provide evidence that you have paid $150 a month during the course of the payment plan. The immigration officers are very attuned to this issue, and it is very offensive to them if they find that there are foreign nationals living in the United States without having paid all of their taxes. On the other hand, they are somewhat or very understanding if the immigrant has taken the proper measures to pay their taxes. They understand that people can be short on money. They understand that taxes can be high for certain people, that life happens. But the applicant must be showing good faith in paying their taxes because it is all part of this moral character, good moral character issue that comes up in the citizenship setting. And what is that good moral character? Well, it means that you have not been a burden to society. You have been doing your societal duties like paying taxes and child support. And it means that you have not committed any significant crimes. And so let's talk about criminal issues in the 5-year good moral character time period. If you happen to get a traffic ticket and you pay the traffic ticket, it's for speeding or reckless driving. Normally those things, if they're not just happening all the time, will not affect your citizenship application, although it is discretionary. But if you have a crime such as having stolen something or having struck somebody, hit somebody, crimes like that, those types of crimes can affect your good moral character period. And if you have any problems with the police during the time of the good moral character period, or any time essentially as an immigrant, you really should be speaking to an immigration attorney. And you can click the link below and put your inquiry in, and you can set up a consultation with us if you want to. But I would say be very, very careful with what you are doing with past problems with the police, because in more than one occasion, people have gone in to the immigration officers, and the immigration offices have identified what we call removability issues. If the crime is particularly serious, it can mean that not only will your citizenship be denied, but you may be seeing an immigration judge. And we really just don't want that. We don't want to be giving immigration the ammunition to deport us. What we want to do is we want to solve these problems and proactively look towards getting our cases resolved in a positive way. So it is money well spent to speak to an immigration attorney. If you want to stay informed of the developments in immigration law and you like videos like these, please, by all means, hit the like and subscribe button. It helps us out to get the message out to people who need this information. I will now touch upon the 3-year path to citizenship. And that is for legal permanent residents who have married a U.S. citizen and are continuing to live with that U.S. citizen. It's really, really important that you understand this concept, because life does happen and there are certain marriages that end up in divorce. And if that is your case, but you still have your green card, and that's a little bit of a complicated issue, what you can do is you can wait the 5 years. But again, please be very, very careful with these issues because they can be somewhat complex. And even though you got divorced and you have a permanent green card, if you have divorced a very short period of time after receiving your green card, it's important to speak with a legal professional about the issues that can be raised at the interview. I am anticipating increased scrutiny on citizenship cases because the government is becoming more and more stingy with citizenship grants. They believe in their ideology, especially the ideology of this administration, that Being an American citizen is probably the greatest privilege one can have. Now, we can have a debate as to whether this is really the truth of the matter, but it is important to know how the government officials are thinking and analyzing cases. And if they believe this, and many of them do, they are going to make obtaining that wonderful benefit increasingly difficult to weed out the people, let's just face it, the people that they don't like. And so if you have a marriage-based citizenship case, you need to be living with your spouse, and your spouse must be willing to come to the interview with you. They may leave the spouse out in the lobby and just look and see that the spouse is with you to ensure that the marriage is continuing. And you should also bring documentation that you continue to be in the marital relationship. Bills, leases, mortgage documents, photos, whatever you can bring to prove the ongoing relationship. And all of the issues about English comprehension and English, the ability to really communicate in English apply to citizens, spouses as well, so spouses of U.S. citizens. And you need to be attuned to these issues, and you need to do your very best to be able to speak in English and to understand the questions, not just the civics questions, not just the history questions, but also the questions that arise from your application. And it's not that hard to do. I have seen people whose English was at best flat, I mean almost non-existent, who worked really, really hard and brought their English up to the level that was satisfactory to the immigration authorities. And even though this can seem to be a difficult predicament for us as immigration practitioners, in essence, the government is doing you a bit of a favor by demanding that you be minimally conversant in English because you need it in your everyday life. Let's turn now to the issue of the test and how to get ready for it. There are guides from the Immigration Service about the civics and history test that is administered by the immigration officials. Now, the immigration officials are more and more controlled by office technology. They cannot throw you softball questions. Basically, the questions are given by the computer, and they have to ask the questions, and the questions are asked at random. That may seem to be a real disadvantage, but what it means is that the administration of the test is much fairer. I know in past years that you would find people who come into your office as an immigration practitioner who really don't speak a lick of English, and they were required to be able to converse in English for their naturalization interview. And you say, well, how did that happen? Well, maybe they had an officer who was more favorable to them and said, I feel bad for you. I'm just going to throw it your way. That is really not the case anymore. You need to be prepared. Another issue that is coming up is that there is a more strict immigration interview process that is now being implemented by the Trump administration. It is really too soon to see how this plays out, but it cannot make things easier. I am sure of that. What I can say is that they will be more strict with the civics and with the English, and also there is a standard that you are supposed to have made a positive contribution to society. Now, a positive contribution to society is a very, very hard standard to really understand. And probably what it might mean, in my opinion, at this point in time, until we see how it's truly implemented, is maybe have some good moral character letters from the neighbors saying, hey, you've been good to them, you've helped them clean up, or you've done favors for them, you've been a positive influence on the community. Maybe letters from civic and church leaders, religious leaders, things like that. I think that these are going to be the next frontier of citizenship law. But we'll just have to see how it plays out. But keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking about applying for citizenship. So now what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that you need to be prepared and you need to understand what you're getting yourself into when applying for U.S. citizenship. The benefits that I've listed above are real and palpable. Being able to vote, being able to stay outside of the United States for longer periods of time, being able to participate fully in society, taking away the fear of your permanent residency being removed from you, taken away from you. Those are the benefits. The responsibilities are also a little bit more stringent. And you really need to be working on your English, making sure that you do not have anything in your record that is going to cause you to be removable from the United States and that you are handing that over to the immigration officials. Again, I believe that immigration is a difficult and complex area of the law. I used to say to people, oh, you're clean, your English is good, you probably can go to the interview without a legal professional at your side. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that still may be the case in many, many cases. But I think it is worth it to have the case looked at and to seriously consider, even if your case is what you believe to be squeaky clean, to have an immigration professional, and I'm talking about a duly admitted attorney, not a form-filling notario, help you with your case. Because the questions on the application really can be somewhat complex at times. And a layman may have difficulty in understanding what it is the immigration authorities are looking for. Heck, we as immigration attorneys sometimes don't know what they're looking for, and we do this all the time. So we try to, and we believe that we know, but there will always be some curveball somewhere on some case. So we're here to help. It's not rocket science. You don't need to be intimidated about it. You just need to be prepared for your citizenship interview and application process. After the interview, you will be given a time to come back to the Immigration Service office and to do your oath ceremony. It used to be, until very recently, that they were doing same-day swear-in ceremonies, but that seems to be somewhat a relic of the past, as the Trump administration is conducting enhanced background checks, and they will run another check after your interview. So don't be intimidated if they don't swear you in on the same day. Very few, if any, people are being sworn in on the same day. But we're here to help. Don't be intimidated, be informed, and we're here for you. Thank you.